Hello gardening friends, and welcome back to Gardening Mindfully. I'm Zenith and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we'll be talking about another houseplant. That is the Saintpaulia ionantha, or Saintpaulia for short. The Saintpaulia is a plant that we all know and love. Its common name is the African violet. Now, for us here in North America, the African violet or Saintpaulia is an indoor or house plant because the leaves should not be allowed to get wet. So we keep it indoors at all times. The African violet was discovered in Tanzania by Baron Walter von Saintpaulia, and the plant was named in his honor. Based on where the plant was discovered, the conditions for this plant is hot, warm, humid conditions. So it's a plant that will thrive very successfully indoors. Now, we are able to easily recognize an African violet, one, because it's low and compact. The leaves are often green and fuzzy, and the blooms, small and tiny blooms, are on small panicles that hovers just above the leaves. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, it's not a true violet, but it's called African violet because the blooms are generally violet colored flowers. So it got the African because it's native of Africa, Tanzania and East Africa, and violet because of the color of the blooms. But we know that there are other colors now. So this is more of a pink, and there is also white. So it's generally hues of violet, pink, and white. Now, we have heard different words used to describe African violets: difficult, finicky, fussy. And for those reasons, first-time gardeners tend to shy away from growing African violets. But I'm here to tell you that even a beginner or first-time gardener can be successful at growing African violets. If you take the time to care and properly maintain your African violets, not only will they thrive, but they will reward you with blooms that will simply warm your heart. So let's start talking about caring and maintaining your Saintpaulias. 1, light. Your African violet does best in bright, filtered light, filtered or indirect light. That means an east-facing window is best, where it gets morning sun. During the growing season, a north-facing window is also ideal. In the winter months, a west or south-facing window is fine. However, it's important to pay attention to the amount of direct light in those locations, because then you may need to scoot your plant back if it's getting too much sun, or if you have maybe a sheer curtain that will help to filter the light to where it is not as bright. So if you're able to maintain the correct amount of light, your Saintpaulia will thrive. The next thing to remember is watering. Yes, this is tricky, but if you also get this one right, your Saintpaulia will reward you. When watering your Saintpaulia or African violet, it is best to water from the bottom. Now this pot that I have it in, actually my plant is in the pot that it came in, because sometimes it's best to let them get a little bit root bound and not be so quick to transplant from its original container. So when I'm ready to transplant this from the original pot, I'll scoot it up to this pot, which is not much bigger, but they don't really need to be in a super large container. So when watering, I'll water from the bottom. Now this saucer is not removable and it's really difficult to get my watering can in here. So what I'll do is I'll pop my plant out, I'll place the water in the planter, and then I will sit the plant back in the planter and allow the water to travel through the soil up into the root of the plant. Yes, we can water from the top, and sometimes it's advisable to water from the top to help to flush out some of the residual fertilizer that may be sitting close to the leaves. Again, if you're watering from the top, it's advisable to get the spout of your watering can down into the base, at the base of the leaves, to avoid spilling water on the leaves. And let me go ahead and show you how I water my African violet. I have my watering can somewhere. So I'll just get my watering can and I will take I'll put the spout close to the base and water the plant. When watering your African violet, it's best to use filtered water. What I like to do, however, is to fill up my watering can a couple of days before it's time to water my African violets. And then I will just put it under my kitchen sink and wait until it's time to water them. Regarding soil, your African violet can thrive in potting soil. However, I prefer to use a potting mix or a soil mix that's specific for African violets, because I find that they are more well draining than potting soil. So if your potting soil is well draining, by all means go ahead and use that. The idea is to use something that's really light, something that's well draining, that won't get waterlogged. If your African violet gets waterlogged, the roots will rot and you will not be successful. So we're trying to make sure, especially if you're a big first time or beginner gardener, that you're successful at growing these plants. So try a potting mix, and you'll find that it is much lighter, it doesn't hold on to water as much, and your soil will not get soggy. So that's very important. Regarding fertilizing, I use a liquid fertilizer that is specific for African violets. And I find it's best to use a liquid fertilizer. I also fertilize my African violets once every month. And that's throughout the year because they tend to bloom all year round. So I fertilize them all year round because they're constantly blooming. It's not something that I'm really pushing to bloom. It just stays in bloom. If it's happy, if the soil is moist and not too dry, they will thrive. What else? So regarding flowering, as I said, they flower throughout the year, and the small dainty flowers in different hues of violet, pinks, and white are just so adorable. And as far as propagating, these plants are very, very easy to propagate. You will notice that a couple of my leaves here broke just from handling the plant, and I didn't take them all the way off because my plan is to propagate this leaf. So they can easily be propagated by a leaf or a leaf cutting. And all you basically do is to stick it in some moist soil or water, and they will form roots within 3 to 4 weeks. Saintpaulias or African violets are very easy to grow. We have all been told at some point or another that African violets are difficult to grow, but even a beginner gardener can be successful in growing beautiful African violets. The important thing is to get that balance right in the lighting and watering, and they will thrive and they will bloom all year long. And these blooms will warm your heart. So what I do is I place my African violets in a spot where I can see them every day. If you have not already tried an African violet or a Saintpaulia, please do. You will be happy you did. If you have been successful at growing African violets or Saintpaulia, please add a comment below and let me know what your experience has been. If you like this video, please stick around for more by subscribing. Like this video, share, and I will see you in the next video.